Let's Talk with Gary Gelman is brought to you by Investor Savings Bank, banking in your best interest. New Jersey Natural Gas, helping customers save money and energy through conserve to preserve. C&A Financial Group, wealth management strategies. Avery Educational Resources, college and boarding school consulting. Trinity Financial Sports and Entertainment Management Company, LLC, treating players like people and people like players. And Mountain Development Corporation.
Coming up on this edition of Let's Talk, we have Lauren Razor here. We'll be back right after this. Are you looking to get wealthy? You've come to the right place. Thank you so much for joining us. Living the Wealthy Life. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've written the book on being wealthy.
Yes, I did.
Tell me, you're an attorney by trade.
Yes, I am.
How did you get into the book writing business?
Well, it was because of a case that I've had involving a rapper. And I'm a personal injury attorney, and it was a case where my client was shot by a rapper named Remy Ma. She was actually a New Jersey resident also, I'm not sure where, but she's now doing 8 years in jail, and my client has a bullet hole in her.
Wow.
Yes.
So that encouraged you to write a book? Tell me more.
Yes, it did. I felt that during the course of the trial, it was about a year long. It was a criminal trial, and I was at the criminal trial, and we had a lot of bodyguards, and we had to do a whole lot of things to make sure the family was safe. But I felt when I was watching Remy Ma, the rapper, that there was a disconnect between her generation and my generation. And a lot of the generations don't know how people like myself made it. They think that we're one-hit wonders and that I ended up being a lawyer. I landed into a lawyer's seat. So, but I want to tell young folks about our trials and tribulations. I'm not a movie star, I'm not a celebrity, but I'm a regular practicing lawyer, and that's an option for young people. And I want to talk about, and I use their, what do they call, acronym, and I use the way that they twist words. So wealthy really is not about money. Wealthy is about you personally.
The lifestyle.
Yes, it is.
So what was different about you growing up than the current generation?
Well, the one thing I said, one thing we did was that we took responsibility a lot of times for what we have done in our lives. And I say some of the differences. I was poor. I grew up where there wasn't enough food. My family worked, but we had a great family. My father is still alive. He's here today in New York City, and I'm sure he'll make his way here. But the fact of the matter is we had great principles, even though we, had meager means. Mm-hmm. So we weren't so much after money. Like this generation we have is more money-driven, more me. And we were more about principles. We were more about standards. And I think that's where we have to get back to talking about that again.
So tell me, what type of standards are you referring to? Were you involved in any protests? Were you of that generation?
Well, we had a cause because I don't want to say how old I am, but the fact of the matter is we were in the 60s, and we had great causes. We had the Vietnam War. We had, in our neighborhood, we had decentralizations of all of the schools where the communities were taking back the schools, and we had more involvement in the we factor. We were breaking a lot of barriers during that time, and I think that gave us the great cause, the great American cause, to make sure that we were greater and better. Because what we have to let, a lot of folks are getting rich, and there are young people that are getting rich, but we have to let them know that the riches have to be used to better our society. And I say that to wealthy people too, because part of my book talks about a Bernie Madoff, and that a lot of the money that you used hurt a lot of people. So we all have to get back to principles, and I want to make sure that I'm not just talking about one group.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think your generation has solved the problem for the next generation?
No, I think a lot of times, particularly in the communities that I grew up with, some of us have left the communities and we've gone on to greater and different things and we've had our careers. I think we need to reconnect. I was in Irvington, in another town in New Jersey, and one of the young men said during one of the speeches that there's a disconnect. And he wanted to speak to me personally about how I made it and what my story was. So we need to reconnect. And part of what I'm writing about is reconnecting.
In here you talk about living the wealthy life. We got to plug it a little there. You talk about faith.
Yes.
Tell me, where does that fit into this whole scope?
Well, I was from a family where my grandmother had, I believe it was about 11 children. And we grew up again in meager means. And my grandmother went to church every week, poor, worked for various houses and homes, but brought us through absolutely through prayer and faith. And I know that's a topic that people don't like talking about today, but I'm going to say it, and I say it all the time. She was an usher. She used to wear the white uniform, and she was proud to invite guests and welcome them in. And it actually was passed down through us that by faith, this is why we are here. And that's what I believe. That's my belief. And I'm not judging anyone else, but I also don't want them to judge me when I talk about faith.
Right. Now, why didn't the next generation follow through in faith?
I
The
think-
churches aren't filled anymore.
Right, I said the casino parking lots are filled, but I don't want to talk about the those casinos. They're a good thing. They're entertainment if they don't get out of hand. But the fact of the matter is, I think where it was like someone said in high school when my nephew was going to high school. She said even though he's a older man, he's still kind of like a child at heart, even if he's in high school. So you still have to keep following him. And I think what happened was we didn't lend ourselves enough to young people, to reconnect with young people. We thought that, oh, you're this mature individual, you don't need our help anymore. And I think that's definitely not true.
We have to take a break. When we come back, I want to go through all 18 principles. Can we do that?
Yes, I didn't memorize them, but they're very good principles.
We'll do that when we come back. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back right after this.
Some say all banks are the same.
We disagree.
We separate ourselves by not just providing high-quality products,
but standing behind them with world-class service.
Not by just lending money to businesses,
but supporting that business.
Not just being in the community,
but by taking an active part in our community.
We are your bank.
Investor Savings Bank.
Bank with investors and experience the difference.
If you were born after 1973, about 30% of your friends and relatives are missing. Since the Supreme Court approved legal abortions 30 years ago, nearly 1 of every 3 babies was aborted. That means 43 million U.S. children, teens, and young adults are missing. While we know how all of them disappeared, we will never know what they had to offer. Life. See what we've been missing.
Welcome back to Let's Talk. We have Lauren Razor here, who wrote the book, Living the Wealthy Life. And I looked at this cover here. What is this about the silver platter and 18 principles? How'd you come up with that?
Well, everyone who knows me knows I have a sense of humor and a philosophical sense of humor. And what I looked at was the age of maturity was 18. And I know that we're in the internet generation and everyone wants it fast forward. So I basically delivered you 18 principles on a silver platter where you don't have to go anywhere else.
There you go. Now, is that your hand?
Oh, no, it's not my hand. Absolutely not. No.
Tell me, you talk in the book about being excited about life.
Yes.
Where does that come from, and how do you get a generation who's really excited about nothing, excited about life?
Well, it's very important because I go around and I talk to a lot of people, including young people. I'm in stores and I talk a lot. And what I usually do is I ask them how they're doing, how they're feeling. A lot of them hear what we're talking about. Sometimes they don't believe they hear about the economy that we talk about all the time, the politics that are kind of in disarray. They hear all of that. They're taking that all in. If you think about what they're thinking, they're not sure what kind of future they have. So I have to give it to them the way I got it. Be excited about your life. You have a lot of opportunity. Even though you hear some tough talk and tough things, you have great opportunity during this time.
Now, what advice do you give the African American population?
You know, I am African American female woman, and
As a lawyer, that's
yes, and I've had my I've had my.
Did you know that you're a
African American female lawyer? I just checked what. But you know, I've had my what they call the licks, and I've had a lot of good results in my life in terms of being a lawyer, and I'm glad I am a lawyer. I think you have to say, you know, we all have to take responsibility for our own lives. We all have to create the vision for our own lives. And, you know, we're here to do some of the things that God wants us to do. And the bottom line is that take responsibility for your own life, craft your own life, and go out there. And if you have a dream, make sure no one deters you from pursuing your dream, because the bottom line is you're not here to be downtrodden. Okay, you're not here to be the place, you know, somewhere else. You're here to be the best, and you're here to be the greatest. And that's what the book is about, lifting up, encouraging, and being excited.
Now, do you talk differently to young boys opposed to girls?
You know, I'm a straight talker. If anybody tells you a little bit about me, I'm a straight talker. And what I do is I talk direct. I say to the young men, and I have discussions about relationships and what a family is, and I talk directly to them. One night of pleasure could be a night of pain. It could be a lifetime of pain. I do a lot of family court work, and I see a lot of degradation in family court. So I'm out here to warn you. I'm out here to give you the instruction of how, for example, how do you choose a family? You know, how do you choose a husband? How do you choose a wife? I have a blog talk show that talks about courting. Let's get back to courting. Taking someone out and choosing and thinking about your mate. So those are the things I discuss very openly and honestly.
What about, I see a little chapter here on defects and addictions. What's that all about?
That's my favorite chapter. The fact of the matter is you can't move ahead, and that's for everybody. It's for everyone. You can't move ahead in life unless you get control of whatever your addictions are. If your addictions are jealousy, you got to get control of that. If your addictions are anger, you must get control of that. Somebody is doing 8 years of jail because she had an angry moment, uncontrollable moment, and therefore it ruined her entire life.
Let me read what you wrote here. Wealthy living means living free from addictions, and that definitely includes a drama addiction. Living your wealthy life means consciously and deliberately doing things to improve your situation. When you walk or drive through streets in New York or Trenton or Patterson, Atlantic City, Irvington, you see people who don't have jobs.
Right.
What would did you ever get out and talk to them?
Well, in an interesting way, after 9/11, I left. I walked out of the Attorney General's office and said I wanted to do something on my own. So I created a job for myself. I took the experience that I had as a lawyer over X amount, 10 years, and I left and built from ground up. No silver platter, no silver spoon, silver platter. I built from ground up a law practice. So you have to create your own opportunity and create your own job. If that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. May not answer everything, but I can tell you I did it myself.
Now, you mentioned in the book, or at least personally, you mentioned you worked for Eliot Spitzer.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
I believe he was a great attorney general, and I believe he would have been a great governor. But sometimes I always say surround yourself with the best and positive people and the best leadership. And if you don't do that, you may be steered in the wrong direction.
Well, he had great people around him.
Well, I wasn't in the governor's mansion. I was on the attorney general mansion.
That's interesting. You write here on Principle 16, wealthy living means knowing your family is a blessing.
Yes, yes.
Tell me, is that parents or children?
The fact that you have family each and every day. You have to. My father's here and he's 79. And the fact that he is here today, my family is a blessing. We had a holiday gathering. I have cousins that I grew up with that were like my brothers and sisters. And you have to know, you have to take time. And sometimes I complain, it's so much, I got to have them all over. Sometimes you complain, but thank God you're not going to a funeral, that they're here today for you to say you love them. So I say you love them as much as possible, and make sure that they know that you do care about them.
Your Principle 14, let's see, wealthy living requires understanding leadership. And I'm sure you've been in enough leadership roles.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What do young people and individuals need to know about leadership?
Well, I think they need to know what real leadership is and why you're following them. So sometimes we follow celebrities, but they never signed up to be your leader. So I don't blame a Tiger Woods. I don't blame Michael Vick. I don't blame all these other individuals who go out and do these things. That's their addiction and they have to deal with it. But they never signed up to be your leader. You have to really know why you're following someone. Because someone can golf well doesn't mean that should be your religious and spiritual leader. So I say we have to redefine and we have to let young people know and everyone out there that maybe these folks we shouldn't follow except if we want to know how to play a good golf game or we want to shoot a basketball real well. That's when you follow them, but not for your personal and your moral and spiritual growth. I think we put too much on them and we put too much of a heavy burden on them.
We had a college president sit in your chair a few days ago who said some young people that come from the inner cities, thank God they finished high school because getting to school is the bigger issue than going to school. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, any young people that are watching who want to be inspired by you, but sometimes their environment has caused them to really lose faith?
Well, I used to have to run from the train station into my building because what I call these individuals, young entrepreneurs, I guess, standing in front of the stoop during a tough, turbulent time. I mean, I grew up in a time where there was a lot of heroin trade. And, it was chaos in our community. But, you do what you have to do. You move around. You put your books away. You make sure that you are safe. And you have to work your way around it. I know it's tough. But if you have a dream about your life, that's the one thing. If you have a dream about your life, if you're inspired about your life, if you feel you have a vision, you have to have a vision that things are going to be greater than what they are today, then that'll hold you through. I thought the world was still great. I was like Mary Tyler Moore. I don't know if you remember that show. You're too young. She used to throw her hat up in the air every time she'd come in to the city. Well, that's how I feel. And I'm saying to young people, I'm no different than you guys out there struggling in college when you guys were. But you have to still have a vision and fight your way through.
Now, you have a principle here about giving back. You've reached great success. What do you encourage people to give back to their community?
I think you have to take responsibility for your community. If your community is not the way you want it to be, then you have to take responsibility for your community. That's part of giving back. Not just money, but people have to attend board meetings. People have to attend a lot of different things they have to do to be part of their community. It's difficult for all of us, and I'm not saying that I'm not a victim of that. Sometimes you have so many things to do that you're not in your community. So even I have to reboot and reconnect myself to my own community and make sure that I participate. So I'm encouraging everyone to do it. Hold me accountable and make sure the next time I'll tell you what kind of community activities I'm involved in.
Did you ever find throughout your career you were stepped over for a job or not giving opportunity? And what was that like? And how did you transform the situation?
Well, it's kind of funny because it does happen. But you know what? It happens to a lot of people. So the way the hierarchy is of every corporation, someone is here. Mm-hmm. Okay. So whether we like it or not, I gave a little story. I know I don't have too much time. I gave a story about my nephew. My nephew was shooting basketballs, and a young girl who didn't look like him, she was a Caucasian young lady, his age, they were not teenagers, was out shooting him in this basketball game. So he stood on the side. And I remember saying, go back up there and make sure you start shooting, because this is going to be your competition in the future. Women are rising. You may have competition with lots of different groups. So you have to get ready for it and be prepared.
Interesting. We have to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about race relations and how we can get over this problem in New Jersey and throughout the East Coast. We'll do that when we come back. Lauren, thank you so much for being here. She wrote the book, Living the Wealthy Life. We'll be back right after this on a silver platter and everything. We'll be back. Welcome back to Let's Talk. We've got the woman who wrote the book. Lauren Razor is here, Living the Wealthy Life. Lauren, where did you come up with all this information? Where did you gather it to write the book?
I had a time where I worked for corporate America. I worked for several companies. And I looked at the formula for success and some of the principles that I have in here. I actually analyzed what these individuals who were successful, what they actually did to become successful. So some of the people that I liked in corporate America, one person was Jack Welch. He was the former
CEO.
CEO of General Electric at the time,
Right.
and several other individuals that I liked that were heads of corporations and in the corporations that I liked. So I saw what their principles. Oprah Winfrey was one of the individuals that I looked at. Of course, our President Barack Obama is part of how I see a principled life. I also see former President George Bush. I have to be fair. I saw a lot of things that in order to be successful at whatever you do, there are principles that run through each of those individuals that seem to be the same.
Let's talk about two people. You mentioned Jack Welch and our president. Let's start with Jack Welch. What items did he have that you thought were good, that made him a good leader? And he was very successful at GE.
Well, he was able to turn General Electric around. That was number one in a tough, turbulent time. And number two, he was a very disciplined individual from when I studied and read his book. I know that one of the characters was being very, very disciplined. He was also good with people and making sure that he was able to conquer and he was a good strategist. So a lot of times our leaders that are successful have the same things running through their blood, different styles, but it's still part of the success formula.
And what about the president?
I thought the president ran an incredibly disciplined race.
Now that's a negative. Oh, the race. Okay, go ahead.
No.
Like he's a past president or something.
No.
Go ahead. I'm
well,
sorry.
his first race was an incredible race. I mean, he beat out some very successful people. Right. I mean, if you think about it, you have to be up every single day. You have to be at every particular picnic, every particular fundraiser. I mean, you're actually working more than 24 hours a day, if there were 24 hours a day. And you have to be disciplined and have the stamina and also have the vision to keep going. And I thought his race was incredibly disciplined. And he followed the message and he stayed on message. And he did that in order to achieve his goal. And he actually did achieve his goal by becoming the president of the United States.
Now, what techniques is he using of yours to be successful?
One of the ones I talk about is being disciplined and focused. The president, like President Clinton, knew at an early age that he wanted to be president of the United States. So he took the steps that put him in a position, obviously governor of Arkansas, obviously taking the steps that he did, being a, 2 or 3 term governor of Arkansas. Our President Obama also took certain steps to prepare him. I always say in my book, I talk about being disciplined, focused, and being prepared, because that moment will come in time where you will be discovered. And at that point, just like this time is a great time for me being here, I have to be ready for this time. And it took me a long time to get here, but I'm going to tell you, I'm really happy to be here.
That's great. What about some local people that you know that have used some of your techniques or appreciate your techniques?
Well, I think one of my role models is Mayor Wayne Smith. He's a 3-term mayor. He has taken the tools that he has, and then you probably know all the budgets in the cities are really, being taken away. So what he doesn't have in resources, he has in charm, he has in bringing people together, not alienating individuals. The people that I see there, we were at an event with him, people that I see that are around him basically love him. And with not a lot of things to give away and not a lot of things to promise, which he cannot, that's an incredible feat in this time.
Interesting. I remember saying, the famous saying is, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
It's really who knows you and how you're able to bring people together.
Correct.
Which is very
Absolutely.
consistent there. We just have a few minutes left. What other principles can you add to this discussion to let people know how they should get this book, first of all?
Well, how they can purchase the book, I have a website called livingthewealthylife.com, livingthewealthylife.com. You can purchase it from my website, or you can go on Amazon.com. You can request it from Barnes & Noble to make sure they're all over the shelves. You can do all of those things. But Living the Wealthy Life, my website, you can definitely go and purchase it there. And I would ask that you do that, because a lot of the profits will go to some of the fundraising efforts that I have for the Learning Tree Multicultural School.
I noticed in the back, Pamela Hayes wrote a straight-to-the-point guide for those who want to be successful. Now, she's been on CNN,
Yes.
MSNBC, Nancy
Yes.
Reese. Tell me, how did you get her to write a little note about this?
Well, Pamela Hayes is a person who has been practicing law for a very long time. She has her own firm. I guess she was one of the people that read the book, and when she read the book, she thought, knowing me, she knows my personality. So my personality, everyone calls us razor sharp, straight up with no chasers, and will call it the way she sees it. So as a friend, she knows that that's what I'm like, and part of what I'm doing is trying to get the message out to people that we have to start doing a lot of different things, like making sure we tell the truth to each other, love each other, stick together. We're one part of the human race. And maybe I'm here to remind folks that that's really what we are about.
Interesting. Tell me about your law practice as an attorney. Tell me, what's that been like? And now you have your own firm. How long have you had your own firm?
I came out after 9/11, and I started my own practice. I had a vision of being in private practice would be easier. And shortly did I know that actually that was the opposite. You work much harder when you work on your own than you work for someone else. Right. So it's been 10 years, and thank God I'm still healthy enough to keep going.
And you're at Penn Plaza? You're
yes,
right in the center of the world there.
Oh, yes. Yes, it's a fabulous place.
Well, thank you so much for being here. We've actually run out of time.
Oh,